Department of Water and Sanitation has warned that unless the rising temperatures are curbed by heavy downpours in the coming months, municipalities countrywide could be forced to introduce water restrictions. The department further warned that unless it rains heavily soon, vast parts of South Africa might be faced with dry conditions that are likely to leave residents with little to no drinking water. The Nelson Mandela region of the Eastern Cape was identified as an area where the situation is particularly dire. And joining us now to talk about this is Water and Sanitation Department spokesperson Sputnik Radau. Good evening and thank you so much for your time tonight. Let's just talk about this situation. Are we looking at water restrictions a lot more sooner than anticipated?
Bongo, thank you very much for your time. We are not really thinking that we could have the water restrictions nationwide as soon as possible. But we are saying that in order to manage our systems, there could be a need, especially for localized water restrictions, which would be obviously imposed by the municipalities, depending on what the systems, on what their systems are saying from time to time. But at the moment, from a national perspective, we are saying that there is a concern with the declining dam levels, and therefore we need to be just alive to the fact that we do need some rainfall, and we do need some substantial rainfall at that in order to be able to overcome this situation.
And looking at the dam levels, let's talk about where things stand now.
Coming down week on week. They have been since the beginning of the winter season, with the exception of, obviously, when we look at it, of the winter rainfall season area of the Western Cape, where we have seen quite good rains coming down to augment the Western Cape water supply system. But on the overall, the larger part of the country is seeing declining dam levels, and that is why the national picture is just below 60% when we look at dam levels across the country.
And when we look at this situation, would you say that things are now at SOS levels, where we might find ourselves with South Africa and some parts of the country experiencing a drought?
We are continuing to see impacts of a drought in some areas of the country. As you correctly put it in your intro, parts of the Eastern Cape, we do have concerns about parts of the Limpopo, for instance, some district municipalities in Limpopo. We do have some concerns around the Northwest. But on the overall, we are seeing that we may not necessarily have a huge decline of dam levels, and we're hoping that with the advent of summer very shortly, we would be able to see more of the lower temperatures that would also reduce the impact of evaporation on our dams.
And when we talk about, of course, restrictions, and some parts of Gauteng have already started experiencing some low pressures. Some people are saying that they're experiencing low pressure when it comes to water. What would these, restrictions take the form of? Would it be, municipalities going for hours, sometimes without water, or experiencing low pressure? What are you envisioning here?
Well, it would be difficult to foretell, whereas at the moment exactly what kind of restrictions would come in. For instance, we know that restrictions also come at different levels. So therefore, level one, as we are seeing obviously in Gauteng, some parts of Gauteng, especially the metros, we are seeing that it is, a question of reducing pressure in some areas, whereas with others it might also include rotational access to services. But at the moment, we are not looking at the possibility of a total shutdown of water services with the restrictions. We are also saying that we are not yet at the point where we are considering nationwide restrictions, but it's something that the nation needs to keep at the back of its mind, that those possibilities remain.
it's level 1 now. People are making their way to various spots, and some people are already, starting to use more water, particularly given the rising temperatures. What is your message to viewers who are watching tonight when it comes to water conservation?
You know, we have a common message that we repeat all the time, and we are going to keep on repeating that message because it is essential for water conservation and water demand management across the country. As a nation, we need to really be conscious that we are not, we are not out of the woods so far as the drought is concerned, but also even if we were to be out of the woods, we must remember that we are a water scarce country ordinarily. So we need to be able to keep it in our psyche that water conservation must be a way of life. It has to be part of our DNA. And that is why we have to work very closely with our municipalities, work very closely with all water sectors so that all consumers have got a common understanding of the need to conserve water and use water sparingly. And that unfortunately is not a debate to be had. It is something that we have to do.
And Sputnik, as a final question, what assistance is being, made for municipalities or even areas that may, not have access to water, particularly given the fact that we are still, within COVID-19, we're still not out of the woods when it comes to that particular pandemic. What, continues to be your efforts from your end?
I think the major issue from our point of view is to assist municipalities that have not got universal access, and that is why the provision of the immediate and short-term interventions in terms of, or rather by means of water tankering, as well as the location of water tanks within reasonable distances in communities, has been the major push. But what we are also doing is encouraging some of the municipalities to look at how they can be able to make sure that some rudimentary infrastructure gets put into place so that once the interventions, or rather the period of the interventions comes to an end, then they are able to take over that those infrastructure that are already in place and take them to be part of their ongoing provision of services where these services have not been had. And primarily within our far-flung rural areas, as well as our most densely populated informal settlements. Those are still our critical areas. But obviously, we are also looking at those areas that are still feeling the impact of the drought. We know that in the Eastern Cape, there is a push to assist those municipalities that are affected over the next 2 months primarily, while they are also looking at how they can be able to make sure that within those 2 months, they put plans and systems in place to be able to make sure that when the waters come down, hopefully during the rains, then they are able to make sure that that water is stored over a longer period.